Welcome, everyone, to Real Estate on the Up, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the real estate world in Orlando. I'm your host, Kyle Madoran, and on this show, we're all about pulling back the curtain with the unfiltered truth about real estate. We're not just here to sell houses. We're here to provide concierge-style service because everyone loves being treated like a VIP. This podcast is your go-to resource for transparency, integrity, and the knowledge you need to make smarter real estate decisions. Whether you're a seasoned investor or a first-time home buyer, we've got you covered. So buckle up and get ready to move up in the world of real estate. It's time for Real Estate on the Up. Welcome back to Real Estate on the Up, the show where we explore the people, places, and opportunities that make the real estate world thrive. Today, we're thrilled to have a guest who truly embodies the spirit of real estate, Lisa Ann Carter. Lisa has been a Central Florida resident for over 30 years, and for almost 20 years of that time, she's been a real estate agent. Stay tuned because Lisa's insights into Florida living and the Central Florida market are not to be missed, so let's dive in. Here she is, Lisa Ann Carter.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Lisa.
Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm delighted to have you here because you have a world of experience when it comes to real estate in this area. And you're also very similar to most of the residents who live in Central Florida in that you came here as a transplant from another part of the country, from another state. So we want to talk a little bit about that because so many of our customers find themselves in a similar situation where they're living somewhere else currently and they're thinking of relocating to Florida, or they've kind of gotten here and started to rent and kind of figure it out. And they're just waiting to buy something and settle down and make this their new home. So I know you've been in that similar situation. So can you share a little bit about your journey from Eastern Kentucky to Central Florida and what inspired you to make that move?
Sure. So I actually married my high school sweetheart.
Oh, that's great.
We were young and didn't know a whole lot. And I think now we're old and probably know even less. But anyway, I was 19. He had just turned 20. So I was almost 20. But anyway, we get married. We moved to Columbus, Ohio. I went to work for State Farm Auto Insurance in the auto claims industry, and he was getting his college degree. So we were in Columbus for a couple of years, and then from there we relocated to Williamsburg, Virginia, and we did love Virginia. But while
Williamsburg is a great area. I love it too.
Yes.
Yeah.
While we were there, he worked at a paper mill and had to work in a lot of cold weather. And his grandparents had already retired and moved they were in Tavares, Florida, here in Lake County. Yeah. And they celebrated a 50th wedding anniversary. So we all came down one June and we just fell in love with the area. It helped that his aunt and uncle had a property and a home on Little Lake Harris. So we got to experience kind of some lake living and lake life whenever we would come visit. But that
is true Central Florida living, that lake life.
Exactly. Yep. And it didn't take us long to just start trying to map out and plan a relocation to Central Florida. And we were able to make that happen in 1994.
That is fantastic. So you've been here a long time and you've seen a lot of changes with Central Florida since you moved here.
Oh, absolutely.
So what is one of the biggest things that's changed since you relocated here in 94 that people might find surprising that, you know, when you think of Florida living, you might not think of some of the more modern things that have happened recently. So what's a big change that's occurred that you think has really impacted life in this area?
Well, I don't know how much it is a change, which we do have a lot of new construction. So the look of Lake County, just using our county as an example, is changing a little bit. But I think for most people, when they think of Florida, it is a reference to maybe vacations they've had, if they've had beach vacations or they've come to visit family and so forth. So obviously in Central Florida, if we're insulated just in Central Florida, we don't have oceanfront, but we definitely have a lot of lakefront property. But the total terrain is just a little bit different. I don't think people always realize that. Located very well here in Leesburg because my husband travels a lot for work and I can be at OIA. Now, granted, he travels early mornings, so we're traveling usually at 3:30 or 4 a.m. But I can
that's early.
Yeah, but I can be at OIA in an hour. And so it's just a really good location in that regard. But as far as what we offer, we're in a community now. We wanted a pool home, so that's exactly what we have. If you want the lake life, if you want to be on Lakefront, we definitely have that here. If you want to be in a community where you golf and you have that kind of a lifestyle, we have plenty of those communities. But what if you're someone that just wants to be in a little town? You want the little small town vibe and to be a part of that? Well, we have plenty of those areas too. Especially here, we're kind of in what's considered the triangle or the golden triangle of Lake County because most of our little cities and towns are located right on the Harris Chain of Lakes. But we have that as well. But let's say you don't really want neighbors. Let's say you want acreage, and we have many outlying areas. We have Umatilla to the north of me here that is considered the gateway to the Ocala National Forest. So if you're wanting acreage, we have that. If you're a horse enthusiast and you want a horse farm, we can find you 5 or 10 acres or more. If your family's into the big toys and you want to four-wheel and you want to do the side-by-sides, we definitely have properties that can fit that bill as well. So it really just depends on what you're looking for.
There's
Um,
truly something for everyone, no matter what you're seeking. That's
Everyone.
great.
So yeah, so Central Florida in general, we have this wonderful Florida climate, and then we can pretty much match the type of property that you want to own. So you get the best of it all.
That is fantastic. And another unique county is, when most people think of Florida, they think of very flat terrain,
Right.
barely a hill. But it's actually quite hilly in certain parts of Lake County, which is nice. It's refreshing, a little different than you find in a lot of Florida.
We have Sugarloaf Mountain, so that is like the highest point above sea level in Central Florida. And that's just a gorgeous area. It's a pretty drive. We have a lot of events that are held there. There's a lot of, Claremont has really gotten into the healthier side of Florida living. So there's a lot of races where people run, and that's one of the areas they run through. If you like motorcycles, it's a beautiful like drive to go up and over Sugarloaf. It's just a really pretty area.
It is very nice. Let's talk a little bit about your background because it is unique. You bring a lot to the table when you help your customers because of your history and your family. I know you grew up in a coal mining family. How did
Mhm.
that shape your work ethic and your perspective on home ownership?
Well, both of my grandfathers were coal miners, as was my dad for a time. Even my husband, both of his grandfathers were coal miners, and his dad was as well. But early on, when you're talking in the early 1900s in coal mining, the economy was not the best back there. So the typical American dream that we talk about when we talk about home ownership, it eluded a lot of those people because what was happening in coal mining at that time, you kind of moved from place to place. Many people here won't know what a holler is. They think it's a hollow. Well, trust me, in southern West Virginia, eastern Kentucky, it's holler. But they would, you could move to where the mine was located, where you would be working. But your home, they called them camp houses. So they would have several homes, just little carbon copy homes, usually maybe 4-room homes. There would be a couple of bedrooms, a living room, and a kitchen. And you could live there because you worked in the mines, but you never owned it.
Oh,
Even the miners were paid, many of them were paid with cash, but also with script. And what script was, it was a coin, but it was a coin that could only be spent at the company store. And that store, of course, was owned by the coal mines.
oh my
So
gosh.
to,
Wow.
to try to work and to get ahead and to live that American dream, it really felt like it was a dream, very big dream out there, but
Yeah.
just not for everybody. So fortunately, one of my grandfathers, my paternal grandfather, he was eventually able to purchase land and to have a home. His first mortgage was $13 a month.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That's incredible.
So, but then by the time my dad came along, my dad just was someone, he was one of 10 children. So you had to get out and just make your way in the world. He married my mom. I'm the youngest of six. So we had a
Wow.
big family. And
Yeah.
one of his first early jobs as a young adult, he worked for two brothers that had a construction business. Now, these were small time carpenters. They did a lot of handyman work, but they were truly gifted, I think, in the craft that they had. They built later in life, they stuck to just like building cabinetry. But there were just so many things, they were just so good with woodworking and just paid so much attention to detail. But of course, married life and children. My dad, we moved a few times, a lot of times before I was even born, but different jobs, you just moved where the jobs were. One time he even had to leave home and go to Detroit and stay with a sister and work there for a while and send money
Oh, wow.
home. So
Yeah.
back home, we used to have the three R's. It was reading, writing, and Route 23 North because that kind of took you out of coal country and into areas with industry for jobs. But the 50s and 60s were a little bit difficult in Eastern Kentucky and Southern West Virginia. But finally, coal was making a comeback, and my dad did drive a coal truck for a while. But he finally got to return to his first love of carpentry and home building. And so he started his own business. And he did build a lot of homes from the ground up. But he
Wow.
also did a lot of remodeling jobs and additions. Maybe a family like adult children inherit mom and dad's house or get their, house from their grandparents or whatever, and they need to make it their own for their family. And so he just really listened to people. He knew his craft. He knew what he needed to do code wise and so forth, but he just always paid attention to other things. I remember one job he was doing, I was older, so I remember it better. It was a carport and garage conversion to a family room. And so he had designed, it was going to be a big, beautiful fireplace and really nice room. But he noticed the wife had a lot of collectibles. She had a lot of little figurines and things that she collected. So he suggested and designed built-in shelving to go on either side of the fireplace, and even suggested that they enclose it with glass so that she could display her collectibles, but she wouldn't have to dust them as often. He just thought of things that people normally may not think of. He was adding a big deck on the back of a porch, and this was a home kids had gotten from mom and dad, and now they're starting their family, and their budget was tight, but their railing, they had picked out these particular spindles to go in the railing around the deck porch. But he's like, they need to be closer together because they had kids. He didn't want them getting their heads in there. Just things that he would think because he knew what that home meant to them. And he truly appreciated what it felt like for a family to have their own home and to be able to say they were homeowners and not just tenants or renters. So
That's amazing.
he took all of those things very seriously. So with his employees, he always told them, you have code, right? You're going to meet the code, whatever the code is for whatever section of the job you're working on. But the code a lot of times is the minimum. So he used to, and I can remember him telling my brothers, I have four brothers. So at different times they had worked for him, but he would tell them that nails are the cheapest material on the job. So use them, don't be afraid to use a nail. Don't be afraid to secure something. And then another saying he used to have, because when he would go in, especially at remodels, that can be tricky because if you don't already have good construction and you're adding on to it, there's a lot of things to consider. But he would have a saying sometimes, and most of the homes there were frame homes or stick-built
Mhm.
homes is what we call them, but they were frame homes. And he would say, well, it was a true split level. All the boards are split and none of them's level. So sometimes there would be a little bit more prep work before you could do an addition or do a
Yeah.
remodel. So,
What
uh,
an amazing background to be able to hear the stories and see that. And what's incredible to me about that is that the fact that he was a craftsman, but he really took an interest in the customers, getting to know them and listening to them and trying to find ways to incorporate what they were trying to accomplish in such a way that was personalized to their needs.
yeah.
That's incredible. I wish builders were like that today because we don't.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
not supposed to say that they don't build homes like my daddy used to, but I think some things are a little bit lost because we are quick. right?
Right.
Everything's
Right.
so timeline driven. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, home building now is mainly done by large corporations who are focused on their profit and making money as they should be. They have shareholders that they're responsible for,
exactly.
but still there's that personal touch and that caring that sometimes you find might be a little bit lacking in certain circumstances that I think doing things the old-fashioned way, we miss that.
Yes, definitely.
Well, you obviously have taken that same sort of passion that your father had and put it into real estate. So tell us a little bit about your approach when you have a buyer who comes to you and tells you, "Hey, I'm interested in purchasing a property in the area." How do you help them prepare for that process? Because I know we've had a lot of changes in the industry recently, and everyone's interested to hear about home buying because they're a little nervous sometimes to jump in and get things started, especially with interest rates being where they are.
Yes.
So tell us how you work with your customers to make sure that they're ready for that big purchase.
Well, I'm a little bit old school. I mean, I use all the technology that's available to us. I never leave home without my laptop. And of course, my phone can be on hotspot if I actually need the laptop instead of my phone for something. I use all kinds of important apps, and we have electronic filing system, electronic signing, all of those things. But when I get an initial call from somebody, I actually do it's basically a customer needs analysis. So I have paperwork I pull out. I have a little form and I ask them questions just to get a feel for what their home, what they're looking for. One question, I had a couple recently. This was a young couple, first time buyers, and they were so cute. And they were actually very well prepared to be first time buyers, but he was aware of what her top interests were and needs for the house or wants for the house, and she was aware of his. So they were very well versed on a lot of things. But one question I ask is, what lifestyle would you like your home to represent for you? And they're like, well, I hadn't even really thought about that. And then, like other questions, in Florida, we have very popular open floor plans.
Mm,
But I ask people, do you want formal spaces as well? Like, do you want a formal dining room? Do you want a formal living room? So there are things like that to start having them think about. Well, this particular couple, I'd ask them, as I do everyone, garages. Do you want 2-car garage, 3-car garage? Some people show up and they're like, I need a 4-car garage. I just need the
sure.
space. I may never put a car in there, but I need a place for my stuff and that kind of thing. Well, they were like, 3 would be nice, but 2 or 3 will suffice. Well, once we started looking at homes, they brought their measuring tape. They did all the homework, everything I told them to do. And they quickly realized that for their needs, they truly needed a 3-car garage. So that shifted our focus. We had a community that they liked, and we found the perfect home. It was like the third home they looked at, but it had the 3-car garage. So it starts out, I think, with just gathering all their information up front and setting the expectation of this is how I do work and whether or not they want to hire me. Through this process, we talk about the pre-approval process. And I understand in Florida, sometimes we get people that are just visiting.
Yeah.
And I don't want to just call them tire kickers because it's really maybe a fact-finding mission. They love vacationing here, but do they really want to live here? Unfortunately, if I'm going into someone's home and I'm working with you as a listing agent, let's say, you are going to trust me as a professional to have only qualified people in this home. And these sellers are trusting that I've got truly qualified, bona fide buyers ready to see their home. We're not just out on tours just because we have nothing better to do.
That
But
is true.
the pre-approval process is so important for buyers because while I can guide them and I have a good knowledge on all the different mortgage programs, their lender will have their full financial picture. They will know exactly what programs that they qualify for. They can educate them on what is expected of them for their down payment requirements, what their estimated closing costs are, all of those things. And even though I can guide them to that, that lender is their financial expert at that time to help them. And they may find that, well, we're qualified, we can go up to this amount. But based on our budget and what we have to pay out of pocket and what we carry monthly, we want to be at this amount. So the pre-approval process is really important. And even if I have cash buyers, I start the same way. I'm going to ask them the same questions. We're going to try to build the same relationship because, as you know, this is a relationship business. And
Yep.
so they may not get pre-approved, but if they are truly buying with cash, I kind of need to know that. And that seems personal to people, but it's a relationship. I am a professional. And if you truly are wanting to hire me and work with me, then you will trust me to do what's best for you. So I just need to know that
Yeah.
you're prepared to buy these things. That is why, like I said, I'm kind of old school. There's just a lot of information that I try to capture for them, and I set the expectation of how I work. And then also, if they're working with the lender, I'll know who that lender is so that when we have questions, I know who to call and say, hey, do you think this will work for them in this area? As you
Right.
know, Lake County and Orange County, see, we've got Umatilla, but part of Umatilla zip codes in Marion County. So all of those are different tax bases. So you need to know, well, you might be here, it might still be Mount Dora, but it might be the Orange County side. So what will your taxes be there based on if it was on the Lake County side? So
That's
there's
a great point.
so there's just a lot of things. You've probably always heard people say what drives real estate location, and it's kind of true. And I think that for the agent that you decide to hire, it needs to be someone that knows that location, that really is local to your market, and they can best serve you. Even though my license says in the state of Florida I can sell property anywhere in the state, I don't feel like I am doing my customers a service if I'm going into areas I really don't know and I'm putting them in a home there, because in the long run, that may not be the best solution for them.
It does shock me when I see that there's agents from South Florida, for example, near Miami, who are showing properties here in the
Mhm.
Orlando area or in Lake County, which,
Right.
if listeners aren't aware, that's a good 3 hour drive or 4 hour drive. And so therefore it would be impossible for them to really know the area as well as a local agent. And finding an agent who understands the area and some of those finer details is really important. It makes a big difference when you're a buyer to have the inside scoop like that. And the other thing that you mentioned that I think is great, if you are a buyer and you are interested in seeing properties, you call an agent and that agent just says, okay, yeah, let's get in the car and go. Let's go see some properties. That agent is probably not the most professional realtor in the game. And it's because good real estate agents do ask questions, just like you were saying. They want to learn about the customer so they can fine tune the services that they're providing, make sure that they're being of the most benefit that they can, and also making sure that you're pre-qualified, not just for your financing, but for that you're actually ready to take that step to go see properties. Because otherwise, there are open houses. There are ways you can see properties without an agent. But if you want an agent involved who's going to dedicate their time and their energy, their experience, that you need to be ready to buy. And so I think that those were great points that you made. I agree wholeheartedly.
And that's also why I think it's good that we are supposed to be using the buyer broker agreements now,
Yep.
because that just really, just like the discussion with your lender and what is expected, I think that can truly outline what is expected on both sides. What do you expect from me as the professional? And then what do I, expect from you? So, because it's really a relationship business. So you've got to
It
trust
is.
each other.
Yep. You're absolutely right. It's all about those relationships. And it's great to hear that you have so much value in that. You want to learn so much about your customers to be able to provide that service. And I think that's in some ways a lost art. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of younger agents who are maybe trained, or they get into the business thinking it's a sales position. It's all about closing the business and getting the transactions done. But it's really about the people. And I love hearing that there's agents like yourself who believe in that still. Yeah, it's a great way
Yeah,
to
and
do business.
I've just kind of built my life and then my business on that. So,
Yeah. No, I can tell. That's wonderful. So we have a variety of different types of listeners. Some of the people listening are considering getting into a career in real estate. So if you could give a piece of advice to someone considering making that move and taking that step into this career, what advice could you give them?
Well, so there's a few points that I would like to make. Fortunately, for the brokerage that I work at, we do have a mentoring program for newly licensed agents, and I serve as one of the mentors. So, one of the things that I do when I first sit down with a new licensee is I talk to them about finances. Like, what is your financial picture? Because, as you know, when we get licensed, if you are licensed today, and you come to my broker today and you get a buyer and you get a contract today, you're not getting paid today.
That's
You're
exactly
getting
right.
paid when the transaction closes. So that could be 30 days, 45 days if it's a short close, but it's still going to be probably a couple of weeks. You need to know what your financial situation is and what your financial goals are. Because at the end of the day, you are stepping into a new career and you are a small business owner. Your business is you. Your business
Yep.
is your brand. It's your reputation. It's your experience. It's what you are building for your future. So hopefully you've taken time to look at that and you have 3 months or 6 months maybe put back so that you can pay your bills and so that you and your family, or even if you're single, you can meet your obligations and you can build this career. So I definitely think that financial planning and business planning are key, because the other part of that is you're a small business owner. How do you plan to pay for and market your properties? What are you doing about your signage, about your lock boxes? There's just so many things that come into play into marketing a property, and also even just working with buyers and getting out there. You got to have gas money in your car so that you can go out and show these properties. So I think that the approach should be that you are in business for yourself and you need to have a good, solid business plan. Then the next part of that is your brokerage that you decide to join. So in Florida, the first 2 years that you're licensed, you have to work under a broker. And I work under a broker. I'm not a broker at this time. This is actually on the horizon for me, is to become a broker. But when you work for a broker, you're going to have some type of a compensation agreement. There's some type of
Mhm.
a split. And it could be anything. It'd be 60-40, 80-20, 90-10, whatever it is. Again, you have to make a business decision. Let's say if my split is 80-20, look at it, that 20%, that expense, what am I getting for my money?
Mhm.
Like, what is that brokerage providing me? So when you change and you become the business owner, you really are stepping into the role as a professional and you're being exactly the person that you need to be. And so I think for your longevity, that is exactly what is going to determine your success. So think of it as building a house. You got to have a good solid foundation. So if you don't have the good foundation to begin with, it's going to kind of crumble down, or it's going to be some days up and some days down, and that's not what you want. And then the next thing is to get involved with your local association. So we are blessed in this day and time that we can do a lot of things with online classes. But I think your local association, taking classes there, first of all, it gets you out, it gets you to the people that are your colleagues. You get to meet people. What better way to negotiate a contract or work a transaction than work with an agent that you already know, right? So make sure that you get out there, you're visible, you meet those people, you network, because you're going to need to know who lenders are. You're going to need to know who the appraisers are. You're going to need to know title companies and home inspectors and insurance people. You just really need to approach this, that this is your business. You're the owner and you got to take the bull by the horns and really put in some solid planning and lay that firm foundation, or your business may struggle a little bit. Homes, good solid homes with a good foundation, they're built to last. They're built to stand the test of time. And that's what you want your business to do. So that's kind of where you need to start.
Absolutely. And part of that foundation is getting great training. And so when you're a
Mhm.
new agent, part of that split that you were talking about, you want to make sure that there's training involved to help you learn at least the basics of what you need to know to get started, because few people understand. You come out of the licensing course and you have your license and you're excited. Now you're a licensed agent. You don't even know how to fill out a contract yet because that's not covered in the licensing course. So there's a lot of things that go into that foundation that you were talking about. And I think that's all wonderful advice that you gave.
Well, I think having a background in insurance and liability claims is a blessing and a curse, because I kind of look at the liability, my liability brain kicks up. But I remember when I took my class, my real estate class, I actually went to a class. And I remember when we took the class test, passed the class test, I remember the instructor told me, he said, well, you all, when you pass your state exam, you will now be real estate experts. And I thought, oh boy, just with the license. But I mean, that is true. So it's a good example to use to remind young people that anyone that is buying or selling a home, that is most likely one of the single largest financial transactions they'll ever make, and they're trusting you to do it. So that's just
Absolutely
a
right.
huge amount of trust that
Yep.
they're placing in you. So you need to be the professional.
Absolutely. Lisa, you're amazing. You've got so much experience and you convey it in such a wonderful, very warm and thoughtful way. I know there are people out there who probably want to ask you questions and get your advice and expertise. What's the best way that they could reach you?
Well, they can email me if they would like. My email is my first initial L, last name Carter, lcarter @ and my broker is eragrizard.com. They can text me if they would like to. I'm at 352-217-7964. They can find me on my website and they can, message there. And it's just my name. It's lisaanncarter.com. And if they go around, I am on Instagram. I'm Lisa Ann Carter Realtor, so that's easy to find. And I'm on Facebook as well, so they can find me on social media, but I'm not hard to find.
That's great. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for the time you've given us today. I think everyone really enjoyed this and everything that you had to share. So I appreciate you coming on the show.
Well, thank you for the time and thank you for the invitation. I've actually enjoyed it very much.
Great. It's my pleasure. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Real Estate on the Up.
Okay. See you. Bye.
As we conclude another eye-opening episode of Real Estate on the Up, I want to express my appreciation for joining us. Thank you for being a valuable part of the Real Estate on the Up community. Your time and engagement mean the world, so make sure you subscribe and leave a review. Your real estate goals are my priority, and my team and I are here to provide the personalized attention and service that have earned us high recognition. If you have questions, need guidance, or are ready to make a move, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm just a message away. I'm Kyle Madoran, one of Rate My Agent's top 100 in the United States, signing off. Until next time, take care and make those real estate dreams a reality.